Hello, fellow Texans. I'm Rick Green, your conservative, constitutionally grounded candidate for Texas Supreme Court. I'd like to start by just thanking you for putting us in first place on election night, March 2nd, in the Republican primary. There were 6 candidates in this race, and the other 5 candidates had, quote, more judicial experience. But Texas voters are not fooled by this pretentious argument that says you have to be a part of the club or come from the right schools to be able to serve Texas well on the Supreme Court. In fact, Texans have always wanted a variety of experience on the Supreme Court. That's why when you look at the nearly 150 men and women who have served us on the Texas Supreme Court, more than half of them had 0 prior judicial experience. We want that variety of experience. That category includes our current Chief Justice and other members of the court, as well as many members that have served us in recent years. We want that variety of experience serving us on the court because it brings value to the court. So if someone tells you that we need to elect or nominate a Republican in this race that has prior judicial experience, ask them, have Texans been getting it wrong all these years? Do we need to ask the members of the court that had no prior judicial experience to step down? Are they not doing a good job for us? We know that we do not want to choose our elected officials just because they've been an incumbent for decades. In fact, at this time in our history, we want to choose our leaders based on their philosophy and their convictions. Do they have a constitutional understanding of the principles that made our nation great? I've been with David Barton and Wallbuilders for nearly a decade, teaching on the Constitution and the original intent of our founding fathers. That's the philosophy I want to take to the court for you. These are serious, serious times. Our nation's in a debate right now about whether or not we're going to march down the road to socialism with this president and Congress, or whether we will return, whether we'll rediscover and return to those principles that made America the most successful nation in history. The only way to renew those principles and protect them for future generations is if we elect leaders at every branch of government, that's the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary, and at every level of government, local, state, and federal. We must elect leaders that understand and value those principles and will defend those principles from the branch within which they serve. I believe we won first place on election night because the voters agreed that my variety of experience is exactly what we need on the court right now. I've been a businessman with 13 employees. I've had to meet that bottom line. I've been a practicing attorney in Texas for 13 years, also a mediator and an arbitrator. I've also got something in common with a lot of prior Supreme Court justices. They were also state legislators. I'm a former state representative. I've been there actually writing Texas law and passing it through that very purposefully difficult process. So having been through that process, I respect the proper functions of the different branches of government, and I do not want the court short-circuiting or circumventing that legislative process. I want to be the one sitting around that conference room table with my fellow justices, reminding them that we elect the legislators to write the law. Our job on the court is only to apply it to that specific fact circumstance. That's why I've been endorsed by 2 of our most respected conservative justices in Texas history. One of those is Court of Appeals Justice Paul Pressler. The other is recently retired Supreme Court Justice Scott Brister. They know that I've got the right experience at the right time. And I tell you, my opponent and I actually agree on this. We agree that this race is about experience. And what the voters must decide, the question they must answer, is which candidate has the right experience and the right values for such a time as this. I'd like to share a quote with you from one of my supporters. He said this, he said, "At this critical moment in history, Texas and the United States desperately need conservative constitutionalists to lead our court. If you want to send a message to Austin, to Washington, D.C., and indeed straight to the White House that Texans are not going to let the Constitution of the United States of America be trampled upon, then vote for Rick Green for the Texas Supreme Court." I agree with him, and I hope that you will join me in this race for Texas Supreme Court, not for just one seat on the Supreme Court, but as part of a process in taking our nation back and preserving freedom for future generations. I'd greatly appreciate your support in this runoff. Early voting is April 5th through the 9th, and Election Day is April 13th. You can find out more at my website at rickgreen2010.com and also join us on Facebook. Again, my name is Rick Green, and I would appreciate your support in this race for Texas Supreme Court. Together, we can preserve freedom for future generations.